What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to explain every Colossal Titan in the history of Attack on Titan. This shifter stands at 60 meters tall and is the first one we ever saw in the series, although at the time we didn't know it was being controlled by a 12-year-old child. In terms of pure strength alone, the only intelligent Titan that could beat this thing is probably a full-powered founding Titan, as the others don't come anywhere close. Remember how back in season 3 when Reiner and Zeke fought to decide what they should do next? Well, there's a reason Bertolt wasn't involved in that battle, because he could have punted Zeke all the way back to the Malian continent. In this video I'll be breaking down the backstory of the Colossal Titans we know, as well as explaining its full powers and other Colossals throughout history. If you haven't already, then be sure to hit that sub button for more videos like this, since this month I will also be doing a video on every founding Titan as well. Okay, so just before we get into the main event, I should briefly highlight the difference between the Colossal and the Wall Titans, because they do look remarkably similar. Whereas the former has existed in some form for nearly 2,000 years, the Wall Titans have only been around for 100 years, and their purpose was to seal in the people of Paradise. Carl Fritz created them using the founder, and he designed them with the Colossal Titan in mind, hence their skinless design and nearly identical physicality. Despite that, they are still roughly 10 meters shorter, hence why Bertolt was comfortably able to see over the wall. Like most pure Titans in this series, the ones within the wall are unable to move when there's no sunlight, which is why Pastodake was so desperate for that hole to be covered. If light had touched it, it's possible a partial rumbling could have begun there and then, but the power of the founder is the most guaranteed way of making that happen. We saw in season 4 how Willy Tybur said that the rumbling would eradicate all life on the planet, since nothing can defeat an army of Wall Titans, well, except maybe an army of Colossals. Anyway, let's get into the full backstory of the first Colossal on this list, and in the process we'll also be explaining its full powers. Bertolt Hoover was an Eldian born in the Liberio internment zone, where from a young age he trained to become a warrior for Mali. While we've never physically seen his parents, we know from this exchange between Reiner's mother and Annie's father that Bertolt's dad was a significant influence on his life. As a child, Bertolt was incredibly skilled with a rifle, with the manga showing us this scene where he was doing target practice alongside other potential candidates. Whereas Reiner missed the target completely, Bertolt repeatedly fired accurate shots, and this was the moment where Magath promoted him to warrior candidate status. In my opinion, his good aim can be partially attributed to his calm demeanor that usually kept him focused under pressure, unless Annie was involved. Compared to the other warriors, Bertolt rarely got overly angry or lost a sense of who he was, but the downside to his personality was that he was quiet and rarely took initiative for himself. Reiner even called him out for this before the Battle of Shiganshina, saying he was the strongest of them all, yet preferred to follow rather than take charge. After becoming a warrior candidate, Bertolt was eventually selected to inherit the Colossal Titan, but just like Reiner, he was unable to see the memories of his predecessors. While some Titan shifters lose control the first time they transform, Bertolt was noted to have mastered this power immediately, which is a great thing because if you lose control with this Titan, then it could be game over for a lot of people. 2 years later, he was one of the 4 warriors selected to travel to Paradise to kidnap the founding Titan, and the day he left for the mission was the last time he saw his family. When they finally arrived at Wall Maria, Bertolt was skeptical if he really had the strength to break through, but luckily the gates themselves are made of bricks, so it was an easy job. Now, in terms of its full powers, this shifter is more than simply a gigantic Titan, otherwise it never would have made it this far. We saw in season 2 how its slow movement allowed the Survey Corps to easily maneuver around it, but Bertolt was able to survive due to a discharge of hot steam. This steam emission is one of the main selling points of the Colossal, as it effectively acts as a barrier that protects it from other living things, or indeed weapons like thunder spears. Usually most Titans emit steam when they're either healing or in the process of dying, but this shifter can burn its own muscle mass to release steam when it wants and turn up the heat if necessary. Furthermore, Bertolt attacked Wall Rose during the Battle of Tross, and his Titan instantly disappeared in a split second, which is not something we've seen any other shifter do. This vanishing act is likely linked to steam emission in some way due to how it burns up the Colossal's muscles. On that occasion, Bertolt used his ODM gear to escape after his Titan disappeared, which is a contrast to what happened at Wall Maria, where he was a sitting duck waiting to be eaten. If you've ever wondered how he got stuck in this situation, it was because the Colossal can't do 2 consecutive transformations, so he wasn't able to transform again to defend himself. So yeah, if the Dynafritz Titan wanted to eat Bertolt, it definitely could have done so. Moving over to this Titan's most famous ability besides its size, the Colossal can generate a crazy explosion upon transformation. While other shifters do pack a punch when they're transforming, the biggest destruction was saved for the biggest shifter, as we've seen now on multiple occasions. By releasing the full strength of the explosion, Bertolt wiped out a good chunk of Shiganshina, killing countless side characters in the process, and also nearly Hanji as well. It's important to realize that the user chooses how much destruction they're about to cause, since there have been occasions where the Colossal might want to minimize damage or go for a more speedy approach. In terms of design, Bertolt's Colossal lacks any skin, and its muscly body is possibly the most iconic among all the Titans. All Colossal Titans also have stumpy feet to support their size, and this scene in Season 3 gave us a perspective on just how tiny other shifters are when compared to this giant. Last thing to mention on Bertolt is that he had a long-standing crush on Annie, and this was something that Armin used to try and manipulate him on 2 separate occasions. Other people like Reiner were also aware of his feelings towards her, but Annie herself was never seen to acknowledge it in any way. Bertolt didn't get the chance to tell her how he felt, but his feelings would live on through his successor, who grew attracted to Annie even when she was in a coma. Armin inherited the Colossal Titan after possibly the most polarizing selection of all time, where he was chosen above Commander Erwin. Usually when a Titan is being inherited, it's already been decided who's going to get it, otherwise it can lead to awkward situations where families argue or just threaten each other with swords. Levi's decision to choose Armin was controversial, but whether it was him or Commander Erwin that was chosen, humanity was guaranteed to benefit in some way. By this point in the series, Armin's genius mind had come up with multiple different plans and helped to uncover the identities of Marley's warriors, earning the complete trust of Erwin himself. When looking at both of their backstories, it's no coincidence that each of them came from inquisitive households that didn't simply believe everything the government told them, as these environments fostered their sometimes unorthodox ways of thinking. In Armin's case, his family was one of the few on Paradis to have evidence that a world existed outside the walls, given that his grandfather's book detailed the epic landscapes that existed in foreign countries. Material like this was totally illegal, and the royal government would often use MPs to kill people who showed genuine curiosity. During his childhood, Armin was an outcast compared to the other kids in Shiganshina, and didn't have any friends until Eren happened to approach him. Typically, Armin would get beaten up by other children, yet he never fought back since he'd rather talk things out, and this was a trait that followed him all the way into adulthood. Eren, on the other hand, was of the mindset that you need to fight back, so in time he and Mikasa just ended up fighting on Armin's behalf. A few years before Marley attacked Paradis, Armin discovered his grandfather's book about the outside world and showed it to Eren. This moment is what sparked both the desires to one day see the ocean, but it also began Eren's hatred towards the Titans, since he thought they were responsible for keeping humanity trapped in the walls. One interesting detail about that day is that Armin revealed his parents were planning to visit the outside world, and later in the series it's implied that they were murdered by military police. Mr. and Mrs. Arlert created their own hot air balloon from scratch, but the MPs eliminated them to maintain the status quo. Luckily for Armin's grandfather, his material about the outside world wasn't known to authorities, so he was able to join Armin in escaping after Bertolt broke the wall. Upon arriving in Wall Rose as refugees, there just weren't enough resources to feed everyone, and a year later the government took drastic action. Rather than trying to find a reasonable solution, they essentially decided to cull the population by sending refugees on a fake mission to retake Walmaria. 250,000 people were sent into Titan territory to reclaim this land, yet only 100 people returned alive. Armin's grandfather was one of the poor souls who died on that suicide mission, meaning the only people he had left were Eren and Mikasa. As a result, he followed Eren's decision to enlist in the military, and among this group of trainees you had 6 of the 9 Titan shifters, as well as the secret heir to the throne, but you know, Armin was pretty special too. During their time as trainees, it was clear that Armin was physically weaker than average, but academically he was top of the class. That's why it was recommended that he become a technician, but ultimately he chose to join the Survey Corps. This decision had 2 main benefits. Number 1, it allowed him to stay with his friends, and number 2, it also allowed him to explore some of the outside world beyond the walls. During his first battle in Trost, Armin was paralyzed in fear by the Pure Titans, and was unable to fight back when the Santa Claus Titan swallowed him whole. In normal circumstances, that would have been the end, but Eren was able to grab his friend at the last second and throw him out single-handedly. Besides being an amazing feat of strength from Eren, Armin could only watch on as his childhood friend was devoured, which was possibly the most baffling moment of early Attack on Titan. As I mentioned earlier, this battle occurred after the Colossal Titan breached the wall, and so it's crazy to think that Armin would inherit the power of the Colossal roughly 4 months later. In terms of how he then used this shifter, Armin worked with Eren as one of the main defenses for Paradis against Marley's survey ships. His main feat of power in the anime so far was when they went to Marley and he used the full power of the Colossal explosion to obliterate the ports. When I saw those heavy warships flying into the air, that really put it into perspective just how ludicrously strong this Titan is. Now, moving on to the other Colossal Titans, for this part of the video I will be going into major spoilers for Attack on Titan. If you don't want to know stuff from the second half of the final season, then I suggest you check out now, because it really does not get any more spoilery than these spoilers. Okay, so in the penultimate chapter of this series, we got the surprise appearance of another Colossal Titan, only this time there was a twist. Unlike the Colossals of the past, this one was a brand new version created by Eren so that he could take on Colossal Armin in a fistfight. Eren's version was distinctive from any other we've seen, mainly due to the fact it had a full head of hair and hardened fists. This type of hardening is not something I imagine the Colossal could do, but Eren put it to good use by blowing a hole in Armin's skull. If you're wondering how he was able to create this Titan in the first place, the power of the founder basically gives a person free reign to do whatever they want. Just like how Carl Fritz created millions of wall titans, Eren simply turned himself into a colossal to have this final battle. This encounter was likely the first and only time when two colossals fought in hand-to-hand combat, and I think we can all agree that Eren was the winner before Mikasa intervened. To me, it's quite ironic that both Eren and Armin would one day become like this, since it was this exact shifter that ruined their lives in the first place. Throughout history, there was only one ancient version of this shifter that we got to see, and that came in chapter 122. It pretty much looks like Bertolt's version, because its ribs and neck are covered in muscles, which was not the case when it came to Eren and Armin. As always, thank you guys for watching this video on every Colossal Titan, and don't forget to drop a like if you want to see more content like this. Until the next one, peace out.